Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to week 18 of RSC Solar's The Pre-Jump podcast. Getting it in here tonight with Mr. Tech4 and Mr. Rob himself. Back at it again on the RSC Solar channel, fellas. Second time, and it's already starting to feel like a new home.
Yeah, man, it's actually going to be my first up on this one, and it's pretty exciting. We've been an official affiliated podcast for a while now, but to, be over here is actually it's a really exciting aspect.
I want to say hi. Specifically to Tulane. Hi, Tulane. You're doing well.
Always got to shout out Tulane. Tulane, I'm pretty sure, is gotta be. If there was a power ranking of top 5 most consistent viewers for a podcast, Tulane's gotta be at least 3. I'd say 3. I don't think I've seen anybody else more consistent than him, but it is what it is. Let me get past the awkwardness now that I've shouted out Tulane for a bit. Let's move into our actual first segment of the night. And before we get too far into some preseason results and some big heavy hitters, I just want to give a big shout out to Mr. KFlip11, who donated us all of his hard work about the preseason results. So big round of applause for that man there. But Rob, you've got it here. We're looking at the same sheet. What's your big heavy hitter? Who are we looking at?
Well, where do you want to start, boss? Top or bottom?
Man, I'm a dartboard person. Anywhere you want to start, I'm fine with.
Alrighty, well, you know what I got to do. If you look at Master, right, the team that's in first, the only team that has a single sweep in the entire tier, it's actually going to be the Eggplants on the Garden. Starting lineup is going to be looking like Gavalanche, Zippy, and Dolfino. And even though they got a bunch of cap space between the three of them, I think that they have to be considered tier 1 contenders coming out of the gate.
Dolfino has an RSC record for being demoed the most times.
Yeah, he was talking about that one time. I was making fun of him for it.
Why am I not surprised? Rob's first 10 seconds immediately pivot to his master team.
And not only, I'm actually the 4th man on that team, so I've played in a couple of those games.
That's fair. That's fair.
But the interesting part is that you actually have 2 other teams also at 8 and 4, being the Feta Forgers and the Crash Compactors of the new franchise, Maced Management. Shout out Bex. So it's a lot of parity at the top and throughout that entire league.
Tell you what, I gotta throw out one if we're staying in Masters, and that's the Stagnant Snails. This team is 5 MMR over tier min, and they're 6 and 6. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I know Moose was talking about it before. He was pretty hyped on his team, even though they were all almost effectively tier min. So, I mean, it's incredible to see them going 6 and 6 this early. I know it's just preseason and there's a long season to go, but if they could make it work, being 5 points over tier, or how many points did you say? 5? You said 5, right?
5.
Yeah, if they're 5 points...
Chips is not tier min. That's everyone else.
Yeah.
If they're 5 points over tier min and they have a decent season, throw numbers out the window, because, oh my God, that's just one hell of a playing above your pay grade kind of deal.
Well, one thing that's also interesting, right, is you have 3 players who won 2 titles. And not all of them played for both seasons, but in the last 2 elite seasons, a team led by at least 2 of those players won that whole tier, right? So even if they are going to be tier min, they obviously have a lot of chemistry between them, and they're all probably better than tier min anyway. So I'm not that surprised that they're batting above their weight. But I will say it's going to be interesting to see if any kind of tier max players, right, become available and they're able to maybe acquire one that fits well. Then you're talking about making use of these really good values, and that could be a really, really scary team. Nobody knows better about that team actually than you, Tech. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's going to go down in the dumpster fire, and it's going to be a really rough season for him. I'm really excited to cast him on stream, but I will say the chemistry is obviously there. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Chip Scolzi and Moose won a championship together. Chips went up to Master. Scolzi and Moose went back and won another one. They play really well together. Like that team, whoever like came up with the idea to put those three players together, like must be an absolute genius. But like,
Oh boy.
Jeez.
I gotta pull my Rob every now and then.
That's fair, man.
Jeez.
You earn it. You win that many titles, you do it back to back, you build a team like that, like you get to do that. So nothing to say.
Well, I am going to roll us out of Master. Let's move on over to a vet team here. We're going to move on over to the Pride. Going to be your evil twin, Seven Deadly Sins here. Pride is 10-2 coming through preseason, easily dominating vet. I haven't had a chance to see what their schedule was through the preseason matches, but they look solid. I mean, 10-2 through preseason, normally a good omen. Normally let you know you're probably going to have at least a winning season.
So they have a player on their roster who is a DE this season. His name is Nice Guy Brady. He is someone who, before things went awry, I was really looking at bringing in to trade a lot of assets for the #1 overall pick in veteran, to build around him. So I just looked at their roster now. I'm just seeing this, and if I'm not mistaken, Red Nova Ultimate put up some really solid numbers last season as well. And got promoted to veteran. So that's another player on the roster. But Nice Guy Brady, I think, is the kind of driving force behind that. Not only do they have the best record in vet, right, but they have those 2 sweeps. So when they are winning, right, they are winning by a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of season that they can put up with him and some other guys batting above their weight.
Well, and let's not forget I Professor X. He won Elite last season. He was the 4th man on that Azathoth team. Going back down to vet, he was a vet promo last season. So he didn't play much, but he has that experience playing with those guys. He has learned from those guys, so he's in a really good position himself to have a good season.
Yeah, and he in those. Well, in those
ahead.
games, he put up a 17 SPV or 17 SPV, 57 SPV in 17 games in the last time he was in vet. Right, so you have a player who already has a history of being an above average player. Then you have them be a part of a team in the tier above, and not just any team, but a back-to-back champion, right? So Panther mentioned small sample size. 2 seasons prior, he had a 51 SPV in 44 games, and then the season before, he had a 43. So he's putting up really solid numbers. And what I'm getting at is I think there is a very reasonable assumption that he's going to take a step forward. And if any step forward comes from that, you're talking about not just a good player, but an all-star to complement who I think was the best DE, and that could be terrifying for a lot of teams in this tier.
That's fair. That's fair.
So while we're kind of looking at some stuff, I'll jump us down 1 tier down to rival. Really, really interesting kind of race so far. Obviously, it's preseason, it's small sample size, whatever. But another 2 10-2 teams, Ocelots and Polar Bears coming out. Ocelots 4-0, 3-1, 3-1. Polar Bears started off 2-2. And let's talk. I mean, the first preseason match day is always the least important because some teams have 6, 7, 8 players on their roster. I don't know what Polar Bears had. But then hit preseason match day 2 and 3, 4-0, both of those. Those are going to be two teams to watch down the stretch for sure.
I'm not sure how much of a repeat that roster is, but last season they were 39 and 25. So that could be a recipe for a lot of success, depending on having returning pieces, that chemistry, and that success in the tier prior. The other thing that stands out to me about Rival is that you have a lot of teams at the top, right? You're talking about 8 different teams that are at least 8-4, which is if that holds, right, at the end of the season, that's 8 different teams that are 40-20, right? So those are some really dominant rosters at the top right now. Which also means that you have a few teams at the bottom. The Hammerheads, most notably, are going from their 56-8 season to starting the preseason 1-11. So you got a lot of rosters at the bottom that might be elevating those at the top.
We kind of knew I mean, we really suspected at least the Hammerheads were going to be on a rebuild season. I mean, didn't every single player on that Hammerheads team get promoted?
Yeah, but it's amusing regardless. They've
Man.
already lost more games in the preseason than they lost the entire last regular season.
That is
Almost
so
by
wild.
double.
That is so wild.
Yeah,
God. Speaking
I don't think
of,
that'll hold, but I do think that is a really interesting thing to look at for the season.
maybe I'm not reading this right, but I'm actually looking at Chally, and Chally seems like it's going to be a lot more parity in it. I'm not seeing any teams greater than 8-4. I'm seeing a lot of teams drifting towards that middle road. Seeing a lot of 7-5s, a decent amount of 6-6s. Like there's a couple 8-4s, but for the most part, Chally is going to be looking real competitive this season.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams have had a sweep, but 0 have had 2. Right? So you're having, not only is there parity, but on any given day, one of those teams can actually dominate another. And so I think that's really interesting.
It's going to be great content for the streams.
Chally is definitely my tier to watch for this season too, because you talk about that parity, but you also, if you've been keeping track on transactions, there has been a lot of changes already in Chally on teams, and there is still some banger FAs out there. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more changes. If I wanted to shout out anybody right now, I mean, even though he's been egoing me constantly in my own DMs, Dylan Mario, like probably one of the better Chally players out there, still a free agent. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes in this tier.
I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, you called out Mario there. Majestic Eagle got cut from the bakery, and quite frankly, it wasn't because he wasn't good enough. He was a great great player. They just couldn't fit him in the cap. So like, there's definitely some solid talent in this Chally tier that just, I don't know if it's entirely by spacing or cap or what's going on, but it's gonna be a really, really good season, I think.
For what it's worth, on that Dylan Mario call out, right? He had a 66 SPV in 34 games last season. So that's performing at, if not, borderline all-star level. And to be a free agent, that means that, let's say that there's one of those teams like the Snails, right? The master team from the new franchise. My apologies, on the Speed Demons, right? The Chips, Skullsy, and Moose roster. If you have room for someone who might be a little bit more expensive, this Dylan Mario could be absolutely perfect, right? Just someone who will come out and put up numbers for you.
How expensive is he for Dylan Mario?
He's 1260, which is first round, but not breaking the bank. I think 1290 is cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
1255, I believe, is a second round pick.
Would have probably been cap space then, right? I mean, that makes sense. Even if he's upper second round, that's still pretty hard sometimes to fit into your roster.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those rosters shake up. You probably won't know anything too conclusive about the entire tier until, more than halfway through the season, with a lot of these FAs sitting there. That means that other guys will get dropped for these FAs. So there's going to be a ripple effect, and then there's going to be a lot of... We're going to just have to wait and see with what happens, right? It'll be interesting to see if through all of these roster changes, one team can kind of stay towards the top. I think if there's a team that can consistently push Chally this season, you're going to see them... I mean, consistency is key in the lower tiers, and I think we're going to see that really this season.
Oh, for sure. Do you guys want to continue hammering out some preseason results, or are you guys ready to move on to series? Oh, all right.
Oh, I mean, we don't have to.
No, I'm not asking you.
Yeah. Well, I would at least like to talk about Prospect.
Let's talk about Prospect.
So my 3 of my Prospect players are on the team that is 10-2. They are, I believe that they were arguably, at a lot of times, the best team in Prospect last season. They You have Bugs Bunny, who put up a 70 SPV last season, all-star candidate. You have Quaza GS, who put up a 55 SPV in Chally in 8 games with a 5-3 record, put up a bunch of stats, around a 60 SPV as well. And then you have Polar Bear. Polar Bear is probably legitimately the best value, in my opinion, for his tier in all of RSC. He is a tier min, and I think that on any given day, he can be the best player in Prospect. He is actually on my CRL B team, so he plays a lot with some higher tier players. He's also signed in a separate org with 2 of these players and a rival player. And so he's playing at a Champ 3 competitive level for most of his time, and he has been grinding. And I think that they are really putting things together, and you're going to see a really, really dominant Prospect season out of the inert anemones of the same franchise
Oh,
that
God.
Chips and Skulls are on.
I'm not looking forward to that, honestly. If they're on stream this season, I'm going to butcher the heck out of that.
They're going to be real good.
Before we shuffle onto series suggestions, I do want to give a quick shout out to Dagon. After taking a chip and then turning around and having an 11-1 preseason, it kind of looks like their GM knows what he's doing. I don't want to give him too much of a shout out, but no, he seems to know what he's drafting.
No, I mean, I'll just quickly say I'm proud of those guys. It's not only is it like cool to see them have success, but they had one scrim where a team did really well against them during scrims, and the first thing three of the 4 are reaching out to me being like, "Hey, I need a replay review. Like, we can't lose ever. Like, let's work on this." So, really appreciate the grind they're playing together every day. I'm excited for them.
For sure. Rob, looks like you were about
Yeah.
to say something.
If I can make 2 really quick shout outs. In Premier, you have a team that's 10-2. You do not see that type of dominance at the higher levels. So you have the Fairies, who were exceptional last season, the Hurricanes, who were exceptional last season, and then Interstellar is now the team. They have their 4-0, 3-1, 3-1. So really got to keep an eye on them. And
Who's
I
on that
also
team?
wanted to say, that's a great question. I believe
While you're
Infinite
talking,
got
I'll look that up.
promoted.
You're looking up.
Well, as we're looking for that, I would also like to mention in Elite, you have 2 teams that have swept twice. You have Surus and Aquarius. Probably butchered the first one of those. But it'll be really interesting to see how these 10-2 and 11-1 teams perform. If they're going to be getting sweeps like that, right? That's the indication of being a really dominant team. Not just having a couple more wins, but you're not dropping a game. So those will definitely be some teams to keep an eye on.
And if we're gonna hit every other tier, we probably should take a quick pit stop at AMI. Another tier that top teams 9-3, bottoms teams are 4-8. So it looks like it will probably be pretty competitive again. And really a cool tier with 4 more teams being added as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Surprise, one of those teams was very successful last year. Back up kind of near the top, 8-4, and then Nightfall sitting alone, 9-3. Be fun to watch for sure.
Now that I figured out how to use the bot and I'm not struggling over here, the roster for that Prem team: Wicked, Cruncho, Infinite, and Silver. That is.
I know Infinite and Silver are buddies, and they have been for a long time, so they probably are going to do really, really well. Also, I didn't realize, but Surus being 11-1, they 3-1 who I thought was the best duo in Elite with Fluffy and Revan. And so if it took that level of a team to even get 1 game off of them, that's a really, really scary team.
Fair point. But let's go ahead, now that we've kind of shouted out, I believe, every tier, we're going to move on here to series suggestions. We're going to talk about one that's a little bit more of a controversial moment. We're going to talk about making decisions public. Now, I want to pull this up here so I can just read off, I believe that was Hannon who put that. Yeah, it was. It was Hannon here. Annan posted, when people break rules, they will get a punishment. Why not just be transparent about what rules were broken? We don't need a full story, but an outline of what rule was broken would go a long way, I believe. I guess I'll just start us off. I'm not a huge fan of posting when people get punished. Just from when I was a manager, I guess before, back when I worked in retail, I wasn't a fan. I didn't like other people finding out about why somebody got punished. You know, if I had an employee and they made a mistake, maybe they drove a forklift wrong, or maybe they, sent an inappropriate text message. Like, it's not something that needs to be public. You can just keep it to yourself. It's between the person who's getting reprimanded and the reprimander, and call it good.
Yeah, I can jump in next. I'm in the same boat. Like, and let's be honest, we know why a lot of these discussions are coming up. We've had some GM removals this offseason. We've had some other stuff happen. Feel bad for everybody in every situation. But realistically, like, it already is a shitty situation for that person who gets removed. Like, now you're asking, like what you're actually asking for is now for the admin team to like put that person on blast. Like, that just doesn't feel right at all to me. I know really the intention behind everything is transparency, and while I like transparency, like, this person was removed is enough, and allow that person to explain themselves if they would like to. Like, I would not want to be in somebody's position that got removed. I mean, I know Rob's right next to me, but we have some other people as well. And then all of a sudden, before I can even say anything, you have the league like saying I did all this stuff. Like, it's not their business. It's my business. Let me talk about it.
And the thing is, right, like, everyone regardless will always try to make it their business. I do agree with both of you. I do not think that the information should be public. I think that if you look at that post, who was it? Croc made a great point, which that it just creates so much space for toxicity and harassment to both parties, right? Because whether you have someone who is angry at someone who made a mistake, then that goes in that direction. And whether you believe that the punishment was unjustly given, then all of a sudden the admins and the moderators are dealing with all of that heat and all of that flack. And Lord knows the fury of a million internet soldiers is not something that you wish upon anybody. So I think this is a fairly cut and dry one, right? Like, if these things tend to be usually pretty personal and have things going on behind the scenes. So if you want to make it your business, right, then I mean, I just don't think that you should, to be honest. I think that if you would like to discuss it, then so be it. And I don't think anyone should like try to keep anything secret. But I think that openly putting out information on a sensitive subject when context is required leads to a lot of jumping to conclusions and a lot of emotions being flared and a lot of things that might not be too productive.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Gen Chat can turn into torches and pitchforks. I mean, pretty quickly. So I'm glad that we're all kind of in agreement here. It's a really straightforward subject, and hopefully going forward, like, if it's somebody you know, it's not hard to reach out and be like, hey man, what happened? Did you step down? Like, did something happen? And normally people, if it's your friend, they'll be honest, but if it doesn't involve you, it doesn't involve you. Like, no big.
The last thing I want to say is, like, because we do talk about pitchforks and stuff. If general chat turns into that pitchfork fest where they're complaining about the league can handle that. That's fine. If Gen Chat turns into a pitchfork fest where they're going after a singular person, now we have a major problem.
Yeah, literally thousands of people can piggyback onto like attacking someone, and that's not. You never know what's going on behind closed doors, and if that, like, you just be nice people. It's that, I don't know. Be nice, respect boundaries, don't be an ass. I don't know. It's not that complicated.
No, it seems
But at the
pretty
end of the day, it just
straightforward.
shouldn't be public. It's just not anyone's business.
But moving past that, quite frankly, pretty quick agreement from all three of us, let's talk a little bit about an event that's going on in 36 minutes. Slight change in the way events is being run. Kind of led to this. Trying to do this super nicely. But yeah, there is now something scheduled for I think it's for the next 3 Saturdays, right? Am I wrong here?
I think it's
like
all
today.
season long.
All season?
I believe so.
I think so as well.
Oh my god. Like, I know today is going to be a shorter podcast just because we're shooting for like hour 15, but like there's going to be weeks where we've got to talk about a lot of content because a lot happens. It happened last season.
Until playoffs.
Yeah. We had a couple weeks last season where they were like 2-hour podcasts. And I'm not moving the podcast. It's staying 9 p.m. We've been 9 p.m. consistently every time. I know we had one day free on Sunday. My bad still. But guys, I don't know. I don't know what to do about doing scheduling here.
Well, I am of the belief that you look at fact 1, we are RSC affiliated. You look at fact 2, this event is RSC affiliated, right? One of us was already kind of occupying this time slot, and I think it's in the best interest for the league and as a whole to have everyone be able to be committed to as many parts of it as they can. As a matter of fact, likewise reached out and asked if I wanted to play in this league, and I said absolutely, I would love to. This sounds like such a cool concept. And then I looked at the timing of it, and I was like, why are we doing? I can't play that, right? And so I think to maximize engagement in all forms of RSC, you don't want to have people playing games during the podcast, and you don't want to have the podcast going on to take away from the people playing in the games. I think that if those two things could coexist separately, right, at a different time, more people would be engaged in both.
So I think people watching, if they have been watching this podcast for a while, and especially if they've been watching this podcast for a while when I'm on it, they probably know me as the contrarian of the group. And part of that is just who I am as this old man that hates everything. The other part of it is I feel like I just kind of have to be just to kind of give all perspectives. Also, before I say this, keep in mind I am not a regular. I am one of the positions known as the People's Champ, where that kind of rotates out between other people. I don't think we're that important. I think the podcast is really cool. I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate everyone watching. I also think there is absolutely a way if we wanted to keep it to an hour and then have it be kind of shorter and more concise and then kind of get over to the games. I think that would be fine. I definitely do think like it would be nice to have both groups talk to each other before deciding something and make sure that it is planned in such a way that both can coexist. But I also don't want to be one of the people that are sitting here and just saying, well, we were here first, so we should get complete priority over this. Like I definitely want to see really cool events happening on the weekends as well. I don't know if I said that in a way that's like makes any sense, but I just want to put that out there.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I think that makes complete sense, and I agree. I think the problem was that there wasn't like a discourse at all. Right. Yeah. And I think that like as events for RSC, like I don't disagree with you about anything that you said. Like the podcast is really cool and it's really cool for engagement, but RSC was here and thriving before us and it will be here and thriving after us, right? Like it's just how it's going to be. But that being said, I think it is still in the best interest of both programs to have us exist separately. So when one thing kind of just steps on the other's toes, it's not like we need that space, but it's more of a, hey, what's going on? I was standing here. I'm happy to take a step back. I'm happy to make it more concise for that hour, right? Like I think that that could be a great idea. Um, where you make the podcast a little bit shorter and then it bleeds perfectly into the event matches. Like that would be super cool because then you get that engagement on, you get people on early. It's kind of like that free play podcast that those some Rocket League guy has, where you just can toss it on while you're playing some free play, getting ready for your fun RSC event. But just the discourse there feels really healthy. Communication is never a bad thing, and as kind of we're as officially affiliated for like 4 straight months. It's like, hey, we're also here. Let's work together. And it's a little bit harder to do that because our hands have been forced.
Well, and that's where I think maybe I didn't come across entirely perfect the first time, but every event that engages the community is a positive event for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've had an event in the past that I've been like, oh, this is terrible, this reflects bad on us. No, like, engagement is always key. We need to keep the 7,000 people that we have, and I think, 1,200 players? Like, we need to keep them doing something so they're not sitting around in the off-season doing nothing. I think it's a great idea. I'm kind of in the same boat Rob is, where it's just maybe just like a, hey, like if we weren't even on RSC Solar, I could at least see the discussion of, well, you guys aren't really RSC, but like we're on the RSC Solar. We're for RSC people. We give shout outs to people in RSC, and that's kind of the main thing, is to give back to the community as is. I just don't want people to have to choose what they get to be a part of.
And maybe even just from the perspective of myself, right? Like I want to play in that. Like I had to tell like I've been trying to team with Likewise since season 12 of RSC. And then he took like a break, and then I couldn't make the numbers work last season. And then he was like, hey, dude, do you want a team for this? And I got super excited. And then I was just like, I can't do that. And now that's less that I can put into RSC. And that's less cool. I agree. More RSC equals better. Right, and all of the events are good, and engagement is the most important thing. So drawing, I think that it might not be too late, right? But like trying to establish that effective line of communication from event to event to make sure that these things aren't overlapping in a negative way. Even if this one can be worked out, right? What if it was scheduled for the exact same time, right? Then it becomes a little bit harder to take those steps to work together. So it's kind of establishing a precedent of having that communication before anything gets like set into stone.
I think that's fair.
But
nice.
Simple enough. Simple enough. I think we're ready to move on to some season 18 predictions. We've got a couple matches. We've got one match set up for Monday for sure, like on the books, ready to go. And that is going to be between, where's it at here? That is going to be between the Stagnant Snails and the Basilisks, captained by Chips and Phelpsy, respectively. That'll be casted by myself, T-Sant, and T-Sant, and Tazlin will be producing. But from what I've seen with these preseason standings and from who I've seen on these two teams, I think it's going to be a great matchup.
I don't.
I think that the players who used to be on my franchise are going to lose.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
No, I mean, if I'm being honest and making a prediction, I'm saying Basilisk win 4-0, and I can't wait to see my DMs from Chips after this.
Well, like it like if you look at the cost of the players, it's just not even close. Like we do agree that they are batting well above their price, right? Like they have the chemistry, they've been playing together, they're all probably better than their rating anyway. But like the 3 highest players averaged out on the Stagnant Snails are like 1660. And then if you go look at the Basilisks, the average is 1720, right? So like it's like a first round pick to like a fourth round pick on average, or like a second to a fourth. So it's hard to not see the Basilisks taking it.
And you got, or at least Rob, you're probably far more familiar with this roster here. I'm familiar
Yeah.
with Skullsy, Chips, and Moose. They make the most
Yeah.
sense for me. Basilisks rated AG, Saucy, and Phelpsy. What can you tell me about them? What should I be expecting? Have you seen them play before?
I think we scrimmed them, or played them in the preseason or something. But they're pretty good. They're really consistent. Like most of the players above 1700 cost in RSC are just really fast and really consistent, right? Like they might not be hitting triple resets or doing anything too crazy on you, but they just will take your boost and hit the ball really hard at your net and make you use boost and then take your boost and then hit it really hard at your net and just it'll eventually go in. But I don't think that, I wouldn't be that surprised if the Snails came out and actually pardon me, came out and actually put up a really good performance. So it'll be interesting to watch at the very least.
I'll cheer on my Snails. If they get a game, I will be hyping them up in their VC after.
I would be surprised if it's not just the Azathoth lineup starting, though.
I could see it. Look, man, I'm going to be getting a front row seat watching this live. I'm really excited because if, like I said earlier, if this team can prove as a legitimate almost tier min, it kind of throws shade on the concept of even having cap because, I mean, come on. All that cap space and they take a dub. It would be nice to see such a quote-unquote underdog.
Yeah, but also I think that number one, caps as the ranks get higher mean less, because it becomes more like once everyone can kind of do the same things, you start talking about chemistry and like who has better chemistry than those guys, right? But also, yeah, I do have the Do Not Disturb logo on my Bulbasaur. That's super funny.
I didn't get it from you, so
that's true.
I just screenshotted your Discord logo.
But if we're talking about that cap,
oh god,
like I think that there's a lot of teams that like aren't using it all at the higher tiers, and I think it leads to it's a lot closer than you think, despite the number gap.
The only thing that's capped is Doodle thinks he's going to win a game.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I don't know. I have faith in him. I almost selected him for the committee versus committee game, but I was told I can't. He's apparently in both committees. It's okay.
Also, for what it's worth, the master team that's in first right now has over 100 MMR of cap space as well.
Doodle just said they can afford their cap space. They can afford up to a middle of the third round Prem player.
That's crazy.
There's Prem teams that can't afford that.
What is?
Oh
yeah,
God.
that is nuts.
It'd be solid. Hey, God, man. The other matchup that they haven't completely guaranteed it happening, but they've Enigma has been trying to make it happen, is Energy. I believe it's the Shock. It's their Chally team. Will be playing hopefully against the Strawberries for that 11:30 slot. And my man, I want to see that so bad because Enigma was the captain for Shinigami last season. And the Strawberries built their team with Dondo RF, who Enigma cut midway through the season, and apparently there's a little bit of beef there. Enigma wants to make this almost like a grudge match, and I'm not gonna lie, man, that kind of storyline really hypes me up for a good matchup.
That hypes me up, but I personally think the Strawberries are gonna take the whole thing. Bubbles is a monster, dude. Bubbles is a monster. Dondo is a crazy value for a raise at. Anarchist, I believe. No, he's not on that team. He went up. Who's their Shinx was on the team last season. That was the #1 overall team in Chally. As a third man last season, he had like a 45 IDR, so that's probably going to go up even. And so that whole team is going to be really, really good. So I get that Enigma wants to make this grudge match, but he might regret doing so.
Look, man, I'm excited for it. I mean, I know the roster for the Shock are... It's kind of weird. They've only got 3 people listed. I don't even see a 4th. It's just Enigma, Yagi, and Lilo. That's going to be the lineup for Shock.
I mean, none of them had an 80 IDR last season and got better. But like Bubbles had a 79.7 in over 40 games and is better now. And Dondo costs 12.15, but he's been consistently 12.90 in 2s and 3s. So like they and he's a monster. I'm gonna be working with them throughout the season as well. So I would be surprised if they don't at least get close to repeating as that #1 team.
Tell you what, give me Shock 3-1, and if they pull it off, I will say good morning to Lilo in my franchise tomorrow.
Wait, tomorrow?
Let's go.
I mean, every I don't know if this doesn't happen in your guys' franchises, but Lilo says good morning in our franchise every day. I'm not going to say it today because it wouldn't be. Yeah, it would the day after the match, whatever it is. Tuesday.
Look, funny story. I did when I first joined this this league. I didn't know who Lilo was, and I knew that you could customize bots to have like different pictures.
No way.
I seriously thought, like, with how much ground Lilo covers in the morning by just saying good morning this server.
You have a Lilo bot in this server too?
Dude, that was my thought process.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I didn't know. Lilo, I believe the first time I saw Lilo, they had said good morning in like 11 servers in the span of 10 minutes.
Like that.
And I was like, holy cow, that is nuts. Lilo is like the
dedicated.
If there was a stat for tracking good mornings, Lilo is like clearly #1.
I agree with that. Sometimes I say good morning to Lilo first just to switch it up. The other day I said happy birthday to Lilo and it wasn't Lilo's birthday. And then I got a bunch of people DMing them happy birthday and they had to tell them all.
Speaking of birthdays, today actually is Shazampu's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
It's also
we should start doing RSC. We should do RSC birthdays on the podcast.
You know, we could probably do that on the break segment. I mean, it's only a couple minutes. It wouldn't take very long to shout out all the birthdays.
Like the ticker or something, even like under the exclusive 8 when we bring that back during mid-season. That'd be cool. Yeah, this is an easy way to do that.
It's not that hard either to put in the ticker. I don't know where to get that from.
Yeah.
Oh God. But speaking of matches getting casted up, we don't have anything registered for that 11:30 slot. I know they're trying to work it out, but that is still available. So anybody who's watching this today, if you want to be on stream Monday, match season opening stream, the 11:30 p.m. Eastern slot is open, and then there are no matches scheduled for Wednesday. You can register anytime as long as the opposing team wants to play. Get set up, get registered, get casted. It's a fun time. You get to be on stream with your peeps. Just make it happen.
Good call out.
Yeah, go sign up.
And that's true for every week of the season. So go sign up for Stream Games. And if you don't know how or you're confused, ask your GM how to do it, and they'll figure it out for you.
Bro, I want more Amy and contender teams on stream, honestly.
I do too. I think we should just advertise it in those tier chats because I doubt that they know it's a thing. But I bet they would all eat that up because like the lower tier players are the ones who have never been on stream before. So like that's the stuff that gets them really excited. Hey, I'm finally good enough with this video game. dude, check me out on this stream. There's a play-by-play announcer. Like it's exciting. It's really exciting to finally be on stream. And so the more experiences we can create like that, the better.
We're gonna get Ncred's Ambi team on stream 4 times again.
Oh yeah. At least that's an Emmy team 4 times.
It was great. Miami team went on stream twice. Both times they were playing Ncred's team.
Huge.
That created such a storyline, though, for the second time through, because I knew the casters in the second time were like, hey, you know, this is a rematch, a stream rematch, you know, and it gives the casters something more to talk to, and that's something that, you know, as a caster, it's kind of nice when you have a storyline that you get to push, like a WWE kind of like headline kind of thing. But
also, before anything else, we get too far away, I did want to give a shout out to the top 5 franchises in win percentage right now through the entire preseason. That's going to be Ncreds, Wheelchair, Chulane, Hawkish, and then Bosco and Shamu are tied right there. So you got shout out everyone putting in a lot of work. I know preseason records aren't the be all end all, right? It might be literally the opposite come regular season, but for what it's worth, for the games that people can and have won, they have won the most. And so it might not mean too much, but for what it does mean, congratulations to all of them.
Pretty crazy that Bosco in his first season as a GM, he's already, yeah, it's preseason, but he's top 5. I mean, that's pretty solid.
He's my uncle.
Yeah. Is he actually?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. He is an alpaca man.
Is he?
But
I didn't know.
I will say, boss. I will say, boss. The 2 people that you're talking to are probably the 2 worst people to talk to about good first seasons as GM and RSC.
That bad, huh?
Doesn't matter. It's wonderful. Congrats to all of them. I'm excited to see how the herd plays out. I thought that they were going to get to have their logos or the HRD thing be like an actual alpaca emoji, but that would have an issue with the replays. But they almost got to it. I was very excited for a few days as we got through there.
They tried that, didn't they? Like they were actually like pushing for it.
They were, yeah. I thought it was gonna work. I was really excited, and then someone brought up like an issue with the replays or something. But I was so excited. Or stat tracking on ball chasing, I think.
Speaking of which, God, we need to. I'm so glad we're shouting them out this season because they need love, dude. If we lose ball chasing, that might be a problem.
Yes. That's how we do all of our stats, for those of you that don't know.
All of it.
Literally all of them. Except for the preseason ones, because we have K-Flip. Shout out K-Flip. But he probably gets his information from ball chasing, in all honesty. So the transitive property, it's still ball chasing.
God, if he went game by game, series by series to find that out, like, oh man. But, you know, it has been a short podcast. We're wrapping up, though, here, week 18. Under an hour. Quickest time I think we've had. Probably best time we've had so far. Do either of you guys have anything else you want to shout out or talk about before we kind of throw away the key and move on to next week? Great. Good talk.
Yeah.
Guess not.
Alrighty. My name has been Boss Radala, and this has been the Same Bat Place, Same Bat Time. Joining me today has been the universal guest that doesn't ever go away, Mr. Tech 4 himself, Rob, coming back as always. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night.